So
Yeah, but
how do you get past that?
with work and realizing being a woe is me person doesn't help. Like being a woe is me person doesn't make anything better. Like I know a lot of people that are woe is me. I don't know any of them that are happy.
Mm,
I don't know any of them that experience joy, and I don't know any of them that succeed.
yeah.
You've got to be someone that trains your brain to focus on outcomes if you want to really truly win at life.
Welcome to the Words Matter Pod with Akil Pinnock, a podcast dedicated to wordsmiths and storytellers. I'm here with licensed psychotherapist, podcaster, and author of Solution-Focused Brief Therapy with Clients Managing Trauma, The Solution-Focused Marriage, 5 Simple Habits that will bring out the best in your relationship, Solution Building and Couples Therapy, The Art of Solution-Focused Therapy, and the Solution-Focused Brief Therapy Diamond, Elliott Connie. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm great, man. Yeah, like we were just saying off the record, this interview was kind of months in the making. I don't know if you were aware of me, but I was aware of you, and I remember you had that viral moment a few months ago on the Breakfast Club about kids disrespecting their parents, which is interesting to me, and I am a firm believer in everything you were saying, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So who are you?
Man, I'm just somebody that's trying to impact people's mental health in a positive way, both as a clinician and as a content creator. I want to reach people and help their mental health improve.
And you spoke about in interviews things that happened in your life, or trauma that you've experienced. You had a tough childhood, but was there like one moment that happened that made you have an epiphany that said, this is the career path that I'm going to go down?
Yeah, I had a real tough childhood. My father was a very, very angry and abusive person, both physically and verbally, which leads to emotional hardship. And I got to a point where I wanted to end my life. And I tell people that, and the point I got to where I was so disenfranchised with life, I was so just upset with life, that the best way I can describe it is like, if this is what life is, I don't want one.
Yeah.
And I decided to kill myself. Now, I remember I was 19 years old when I was in that place at the worst of it. But the worst part of my life was between 17 and 19. And I remember laying in my dorm room. And for whatever reason, I honestly think God saved my life with this one thought. Was I was laying in my dorm room knowing I was not going to be alive much longer. And I started thinking about the eulogy at my funeral. And I started thinking about all my friends and family going up to this podium and talking about how sad Elliott was, and how I didn't know Elliott was so sad, and Elliott. And for whatever reason, I couldn't live with people blaming me for my death when I wanted them to blame my father. I wanted them to, like, if I had thought of the eulogy of people standing up at the podium saying, man, his father was a jerk, I'm like, of course he killed himself. Who could take that kind of abuse? But for some reason, them saying I'm sad, I'm depressed, I couldn't live with it. I wanted people to know the truth, that my life was in peril because of him. It wasn't on me. It was his treatment that was tormenting me. And I decided in that moment, in order for people to know the truth, I have to outlive the trauma so I could tell the story. So to me, that was the epiphany moment where I decided I have to outlive this so I could tell people the truth of how my life had gone.
Yeah. Man, that's deep. And, just to be that age and to even think that far ahead, right? Just thinking about like your eulogy and your funeral, like not too many teens, like people in their late teens even think like that, right? But
Yeah.
obviously, you know, you, like you said, you experienced so much trauma at the hands of your father, so that it led you to that. But at the same time, like, you know, there are people who experience similar situations that you've experienced as far as abuse goes with their parents. A lot of those people don't end up going down the path of pursuing a career in mental health, so in mental wellness. So, you know, how come why do you feel like you went down that path, right? And other
Bro,
people didn't?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know. I honestly think it was God's work. I really do believe that. Like at that time, I was in college majoring in marine biology. And when I tell you my life immediately got better, like once I made the decision to outlive the pain and trauma that I had been going through, my life immediately got better. Like my grades got better. I got healthier. I started treating myself better. I met my partner. Like all of that stuff happened. And even though I was majoring in marine biology, I was taking a psychology class. And I was so excited because I wanted people to know that when you have hope for a positive future, even if you're in peril, that hope will cause a bit of healing in your life. But no, like we weren't studying that in my psychology classes. So I literally decided to become a psychotherapist so I could tell people how impactful hope can be, even if you are in a difficult circumstance.
Yeah. So you disclose your age. I saw in the interview when you were 47. I'm assuming
I'm about to turn 47 in about 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, happy belated. Well, not belated, but happy birthday if I don't see
Thank you.
But
Appreciate it.
you know, so I'm assuming this is the 90s that you're in school, right? You're in college.
Yeah. So, this is the late 90s.
Yeah. So in the late 90s, what did psychology even look like?
Well, to be very honest with you, it didn't look like me. It was a lot of theory, and it was a lot of theory that didn't look like people of color. Like when I went to graduate school, there was literally zero people of color in the textbooks I was studying. Not a few, not like literally zero. And I started thinking like, either we don't have a psychological history of which people could write about in these textbooks, or they don't care what our psychological contribution has been to the field of psychotherapy. And it bothered me. And I genuinely wanted people, including people of color, to understand the power of addressing your mental health, of letting hope into your life and getting healing. But that really wasn't what it was about back then. It was very different.
Yeah. Was it almost like, because it's so accepted, right? I think at this point in time, so many people are open about having therapists, right? It's just normal. It's like, you know, talking about what hair salon you go to or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But back then, you know, there was a stigma about anything related to this. You know, somebody would be called crazy, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you navigate and try to like normalize this field amongst really black people specifically?
Well, I did that intentionally, and I did that in two ways. Number one, I wanted to publish credible books in the field of psychotherapy so that people would see there's a black person contributing ideas to the psychotherapeutic field. And number two, I wanted to be open and share my experience because I knew my experience was not unique in our culture. And I wanted people to be able to see that there's an other side to this. There's like, you can pursue happiness, joy, abundance. Like I wanted people to see that you could come through inner city, urban life with a difficult experience with your father or whomever, and you don't have to use drugs. I wanted people to see that you don't have to play sports to get out of those situations, even though I did play sports to go to college. But I wanted people to see like you can use your mind and you can use academics to completely change your life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's true. I mean, you know, a lot of us come from environments where we're only really expected or taught that athleticism or entertainment is the way to make it, right? But
Right.
but interestingly enough, though, I guess you are kind of an entertainer at this point.
Yeah, but at this point I am an entertainer, man, and I make online content. I've been doing stand-up comedy recently, and I'm making television products, television content, but I used academics to get here.
Yeah.
If I got noticed because of my content about psychotherapy,
Yeah.
and I want people to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely created a lane for yourself. You said in your Breakfast Club interview, when your pain has a purpose, it doesn't hurt. What does that mean? And when did you come to that realization?
Yeah, like what I mean by that is like God gives you a story. And that's true for every single person. Like we all have a story. And when you understand your purpose, then you understand like I'm supposed to carry this story to the people who need to hear it and be inspired by it. And then it doesn't hurt anymore. Then it's actually almost like a badge of honor that this is the story God gifted me with. I just have to have the courage to tell it. And I think not enough people kind of own their truth. And I realized that the day I decided to outlive this pain, because I knew if I can survive one more day, there's somebody out there that needs to hear this so they can survive one more day.
Yeah. You also mentioned being suicidal, at the tender age of 10, right?
Yeah. The first time I ever thought about ending my life.
Was this because of the abuse you were experiencing at home?
Well, I knew. Let me see if I can explain this properly. Sometimes it's hard to put words to these things. I knew that my life was pain. But when you're that age, you kind of think whatever you're experiencing, everybody around you is experiencing.
Yeah, it's normal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just normal. Somebody in my middle school, their older sibling killed themselves. And at 10 years old, I thought, ooh, that's a way to end this. So at 10, once I saw that someone took their life, my brain was like, oh, I know how to put an end to this pain. And that was the first time I ever thought about it.
Man, that's just like, I've seen so many stories over the past few years about children committing suicide, right? Like more than ever before.
Yes.
Right. But a lot of people attribute that to social media, cyberbullying, kids seeing different things online, comparing themselves to other kids who they feel have a better life, right? But what, just to see, like, why do you think that that's happening, in your own words, not what other people think? Like, why do you think that's happening now more than, say, when you were growing up?
I think a couple of reasons, actually. I think the number one reason is the adolescent brain is not designed to handle the information that it is experiencing. And I'll give you a really simple example. Like I said earlier, I'm 46. I'm about to turn 47. And I remember being in high school and my history teacher came to the class and we were studying the 1960s. And we got to that point in the 1960s where JFK was assassinated.
Yeah.
And everybody probably remembers that Jack Ruby found his way into the police department as they were escorting Lee Harvey Oswald out of the police department, and he shot him.
Yeah.
That happened on live television, and my high school teacher was like, "Can you guys believe it? We saw somebody shot on live television." And in 1994, 5, whatever year it was, 3, whatever year it was, we're all sitting in class like, "Oh my God, you guys saw somebody shot." In 2023, I've seen murders daily. If you just think about what's happening in the world right now, there are videos on social media of babies being maimed in war.
Yeah.
The 13-year-old brain is not designed to have that coming at them in an unstoppable way. And it creates a level of angst, anxiety, and it creates a level of fear. And once you start having those things, then people lose hope that the future can be different and suicide rates go up.
Yeah. So I want to get back to what I brought up about that viral clip, right? You responded to the idea that kids should disrespect their parents, and obviously that title is very polarizing, and it led to so many different conversations in the comments. What I summarized from that conversation is basically, if you don't stand up and advocate for yourself or to your parents, advocate for yourself to your parents, then it'll be difficult for you to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself and have confidence against your peers or anyone else. But do you think that it's still possible to be a person who can stand up for yourself even though you grew up subservient at home?
No. At some point, you have to learn how to stand up for yourself. And what we have to do better as a Black culture is not translate that information as disrespect. Like, if you have a child and you tell your child, don't do that, whatever that might be. And the child is supposed to think, well, what happens if I do that? Like my parents just told me, like, don't watch that TV show, whatever it is. The child is supposed to think, what happens if I do that? And they're supposed to test you. Well, I don't know what happens if I do that. Let me go ahead and break that rule because I want to see what happens. They're not being disrespectful. They're experimenting, which is exactly what intelligent people do. And then the second level of this thought is, let's say the child disagrees with you. Let's say the child thinks, I think I should be able to watch this. And by the way, regardless of your age, we all understand this. I can remember clearly when I was growing up, I used to want to watch Johnny Carson because every now and then there would be a commercial on that would say, like, Eddie Murphy's going to be on Johnny Carson. And in the 80s and 90s, Eddie Murphy was a god. So if I saw Eddie Murphy was going to be on Johnny Carson, I would tell my parents, I want to watch Johnny Carson. My parents would say, no, that's after bedtime. And what would I say? No, please, I promise I'll wake up and go to school on time. I promise, I promise, I promise. Your children should be able to advocate for themselves. That does not mean you have to agree with their advocation. And that does not mean you have to let them talk you out of a boundary. But it does mean we shouldn't translate that as disrespect. They're learning to advocate for themselves. And that is a lifelong skill. You need children to know how to advocate themselves, because those are the children who say no to peer pressure. Those are the children that understand the value of their worth, so they are not being treated poorly when they date. Those are the children who demand to get paid high dollar for their work once they enter the workforce. You have to allow them to do that.
Are you a believer? This is like a topic that I've started to hear over the past like few years or so. But are you an advocate for gentle parenting?
No. No, I'm not an advocate for gentle parenting because I think that skews the line too far. I am an advocate for just parenting with understanding. Like, when I was growing up, my mother used to say some of the craziest stuff to me. And I love my mother. Like, I don't want my mother to hear this. Sometimes my mother watches like all the content I'm making. I'm like, Mom, you weren't supposed to hear that. But like, my mother used to say, go do the dishes. And of course, if I'm playing Nintendo, hanging out with my friends, my mother says, go do the dishes. I'm going to be like, oh. And my mother used to say, get up and do those dishes like you enjoy it. Well, that's not reasonable. I should be allowed to be like, I don't want to do the dishes. I'm complying because I respect your authority, but I don't have to enjoy doing dishes compared to playing Super Mario Brothers. And I'm an advocate for parenting with common sense, but also hard, rigid boundaries.
Telling your kid to get up and wash the dishes like you enjoy it is a new one. Like, I've never heard about that. I've never heard anyone say that to their kid.
My mother used to say that all the time. Like, fix your face as you and I'm like, Mom, but I don't want to do these dishes. I don't want to vacuum the room. I want to play video games. I want to go outside and play. But sometimes as parents, we forget that they're actual human beings and they should be allowed to have human emotions.
Do you have kids of your own?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay. So, with what you believe, parents standing up to kids standing up to their parents, how long did you is that a theory that you took a while to develop, or was that something that you always believed in or just started believing?
No, I always believed it. I just now
Yeah,
have a platform where people listen to me when I
yeah,
say it.
yeah,
But I just thought it was weird. Like my mother, for example, and I always thought this was weird. I have two brothers. I'm the middle of three. And my mother would walk into a room and she would pick one of us. She'd be like, Elliot, go do the dishes. And I'd be like, but why didn't you ask one of them? And my mother would get real mad. But I was just curious. Like I wasn't being rude or disrespectful. I was literally like, you saw all three of us sitting on the couch. Why did you pick me to do it? And it made me want to interact with children in a different way. Like children should be able to be curious. It does not mean that they get to say no,
yeah,
or it doesn't mean they get to change their rules, but they should be able to understand the world around them.
yeah. No, I definitely understand that. Like I said, I agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, you're a person, and we're taught that no matter what your parents say, it's correct. And I think that's just a product of. I think it's a product of just like growing up under like Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
But I think that most things should be questioned for sure. And I definitely, like you said, that's a sign of an intelligent person.
Absolutely. Like none of us, and it was funny when I was on the Breakfast Club that day, I actually asked, nobody wants to raise a child that will just do what everybody tells them to do.
Yeah.
So how can we expect them to do that in the household, but then stand up for themselves out in the real world?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. We've got to allow them to test the world that's around them. And when your child tests you, they're communicating that they trust you. Right? In my field, we call that secure attachment. The child is saying, I view you as safe, so that's why I'm going to push this limit or this boundary, because I think you're safe, and I'm going to test to see how things happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with what you believe, when you had your child, was it hard for you to even believe in or practice what you actually believed in with your child?
No, because I believe that in my absolute core. I'm trying to raise a person. I'm trying to interact with a person that I can send off into the world and make good, strong decisions while advocating for themselves.
Yeah. I get it. No, definitely. I get that. So in your work, all your books, the word solution or solution focus is a constant.
Yes.
Why is being a solution oriented person so important in your daily life compared to just being like a woe is me kind of person?
So whenever you see the word solution, I want people to translate that to actually the word outcome. And I think in order for us to be the most resilient, we have to focus on the outcomes we're trying to achieve in our lives. Not the obstacles, not the barriers, not the problems, not the symptoms, but the outcomes, because outcomes erase obstacles. And I'll give you an example. Like, do you have a child? Do you have any children?
No.
You don't have any children. What is something, okay, if I told you, I want you to climb Mount Everest, a lot of people would be like, man, that's the tallest mountain in the world. I can't climb that. That's going to take forever, blah, blah, blah. But if I said at the top of Mount Everest is a treasure chest with $1 billion in it, you'd be like, oh, now I can go because I'm now focused on the outcome I want, which is the $1 billion. Most people don't spend enough time focusing on the outcome that they want. In fact, most people are not even aware of the outcome that they want. So they default to focusing on obstacles in front of them.
Or try to find obstacles.
Right. So if you can do some work and find out what is the stuff that I actually want to achieve, and then you focus your life and your purpose and your mission and all of those things on the outcomes you want to achieve, the obstacles become irrelevant.
Yeah. But I mean, in a lot of ways that can be easier said than done because, there's a lot of mental hurdles that people experience that have them gravitate towards being a woe is me person, right? So
yeah, but
how do you get past that?
with work and realizing being a woe is me person doesn't help. Like being a woe is me person doesn't make anything better. Like I know a lot of people that are woe is me. I don't know any of them that are happy. I don't know any of them that experience joy, and I don't know any of them that succeed.
Yeah.
You've got to be someone that trains your brain to focus on outcomes if you want to really truly win at life.
Are you passionate about giving people the tools to live a happy life?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you believe that there are psychological conditions that a person just can't overcome no matter how positive thinking they are?
No. Mm-mm. Absolutely not. I mean, there are definitely psychological conditions. I want to be clear about this. But I've never met a single psychological condition that could not be impacted in a positive way with positive, healthy habits.
Yeah. And could you like divulge like more into, what is like, people talk about meditation, people talk about prayer, people talk about writing things down, journaling.
So I'll give you an example. If someone came to me and they said, look, I'm super duper depressed, like I'm really depressed. And let's say I said to that person, do you pray? You just mentioned prayer, so I'll use that as an example. And let's say the person said, yeah, I pray. And I said, all right, tomorrow morning, I want you to pray for the thing you want most in this life. And then as you go through the rest of the day, I want you to look for evidence that God heard your prayer.
Yeah.
Maybe not even evidence that he answered it just yet. Maybe not even evidence that it's going to work out. But I just want you to look for evidence that God heard your prayer. What you'll notice is there's more evidence that it's happening that you just weren't noticing before. A really good example, this is another thing that all your listeners will totally understand. Have you ever bought a car and then all of a sudden all you see on the road is the car you just bought? That's like you didn't notice it before, but like every single car is a red Honda. You just didn't notice it until you bought a red Honda.
Yeah.
These things are happening constantly, but you didn't notice them because you didn't have your senses attuned to it. And it's something you can actually like intentionally turn your senses on to notice those things.
Yeah. Why is therapy important?
Wow, that's a good question. Therapy is important for the same reason that dentists are important. Therapy is important for the same reason that a personal trainer is important. Therapy is important because mentally you need to be pushed to the level of uncomfort as you address your healing. And if you have a personal trainer, they're going to see you lifting weights and struggling, and they're going to ask you to do 3 more because you would have stopped because you were so uncomfortable. But the trainer is going to ask you to go a little bit further than you were willing to go. Well, healing is the same way. Your therapist is going to take you a little bit further than you were comfortable going underneath their care so healing can actually happen.
Yeah. So what are you training?
I'm training your ability to manage emotions. And unfortunately, I think people think of therapy as it's supposed to solve problems, and it's not. Therapy, like the world is filled with problems. There's nothing I can say or do to make your life less filled with problems. But what I'm training is your ability to activate your resilience so that the next problem comes along and you're confident you can manage and deal with it.
Yeah. I get that. People definitely, there's people who don't think that therapy works at all. So, what do you say to those people? Because they may say like, well, therapy doesn't work because they were probably expecting all of their problems to go away once they started to go to therapy. But so what do you say to those people who don't think that therapy works?
I would say, number one, go see a therapist and try. And number two, I would say therapy works just like the gym. I might have a goal of losing 50 pounds. I don't go to the gym and lose 50 pounds with one session. I go to the gym to get on the journey to losing 50 pounds. And therapy is just a part of the journey.
Yeah. There's layers, right? Because like you spoke about the gym. People say you can work out as much as you want, but if your diet isn't right, then you're not going to see the results that you want, right?
That's
So
right.
so with therapy, right? What is the equivalent to having a proper diet?
Choices.
Mm.
The equivalent to having a proper diet is like I can go see the greatest therapist in the world, but if I go home to that toxic relationship and I go home to drinking alcohol and I go home to smoking weed and I go home to having a job that doesn't fulfill my heart, I'm probably going to continue to struggle. But the equivalent to proper diet in the therapy world would be the choices that you make.
Mm.
Like I have a friend who's a very well-known celebrity, and this friend called me and said, "Man, every time I hang out with you, I feel better. And then when I go back into my life, I feel worse." And I said, "What do you think is different about when we hang out?" And this friend said to me, "I don't know." So I asked this friend, "I want you to pay attention. The next couple times we hang out, I want you to pay attention to what's different." So we hung out 2, 3 more times over the next couple of months. And then this friend called me and said, "I think I know what it is." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Whenever we hang out, we don't drink." Because I don't drink.
Yeah.
So this friend said, like, we don't drink. We just sit around talking and talk about positive things. But when I go back into my normal life, I drink. And he said, if I'm being honest, I probably drink too much. So I said, man, look, do me a favor. You're a celebrity. So every time you walk into a room, everybody wants to give you everything you want. They want to give you your favorite alcohol and all these things. For 2 weeks, I want you to say no to all alcohol. Don't drink at all for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, I want you to tell me if you feel better about yourself. And this friend called me 2 weeks of no drinks and, man, I haven't felt this good in a real long time. Wow. I was all right, let's do it for another week. The friend did it for another week. So, man, I haven't felt this good about me in forever. Let's do it for another. Now this person's over a month sober, saying how much better their life is. And I would say, like, when you make choices like that, your life improves, period. Not full stop. That's just how it works.
Yeah. I mean, as far as you like, when you go out, right, and people, you're a world-renowned therapist, and you said you have a celebrity friend that you hang out with. Do you ever go out with people that maybe, they know what you do, or they may be celebrities, but do you feel like they feel like you're judging them?
No, not really. When I first meet people, they always say, like, "Oh, are you assessing me right now?" And I always tell them the truth. Of course I am. I can't turn it off. Like, I'm a therapist. I can't turn that off. But after a while, it just becomes normal. A couple of people hanging out, doing what you do. And that's true in my normal life. It's true in my professional life, and it's true in my LA celebritized life. Like, people just get comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you're a black man, obviously. I see you on your Instagram, and I see you keep up with pop culture, and you a lot of your blog posts, your YouTube videos, you speak about topical things, and I see you wearing your Armani Exchange sweatsuits and your Jordans.
Yeah.
Is you having a relatable aesthetic an intentional thing, or is that just natural?
Man, it's both natural and intentional. So what I mean by that is, like, I come from the urban culture. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. I was raised in Boston. And I've always my whole life, my mother would tell you when I was 3 years old, I wanted to wear matching sweatsuits. But when I got my master's degree and I started writing books and going to conferences, I would put on the uniform because I wanted to be accepted by my white colleagues, because I didn't think they would listen to me if I dressed like how I dressed.
Yeah.
But then I learned a real hard lesson. Like, they weren't going to listen to me no matter what I wore, because it wasn't my dress that was offending them. It was my skin and my culture that was offending them. So at that point, I was like, look, I'm just going to be me. They're just going to have to deal with it. And that's how I dress. That's literally how I dress in my daily life. That's what I'm wearing right now. I'm wearing a Nike sweatsuit now.
Yeah.
And I just decided they're just going to have to deal with me. I tried to play their game to be accepted. It did not work. So now they're going to have to accept me or not for who I actually am.
Yeah. But do you think, like, I mean, because it's a journey to have that comfort, to have that security in yourself, and we're indoctrinated with so much respectability politics, especially by our parents. Like, you got to dress like this so you could get a job, or so you're not targeted by the police or whoever if you're dressed a certain way, right? But what is that process like? You know, like you said it sounds kind of simple, right? But what do you have to experience to say, like, I feel like you have to experience a certain level of success to really feel that comfortable in dressing however you want.
Yeah, no, man, I hear you. And by the way, I got family members to this day. I will call and say, like, look, no cap, no lie, no nothing right here. I got family members to this day. I'll tell them I'm going to the Breakfast Club, and my aunt, she's 67 years old, and she'll say to me, "You're not going to wear a sweatsuit, are you?" And I'm like, the Breakfast Club is like the number one place to wear a sweatsuit.
Yeah, exactly.
But she hears these big platforms and these big stages, and she gets afraid in exactly the way you're saying. You're not going to be viewed as professional. And what if you're in New York City and the police stop you and pull you over? Like, she sees that stuff. Or kind of like what you were saying, you got to be some level of success to dress like that. For me, I don't even think I was successful. Certainly not like this. I just looked at myself in the mirror one time when I was going to give a lecture at a conference, and I didn't recognize me. And that was a problem. That was the day I thought, I can't dress like this no more, because that's not me. I need to be the person my mother raised. I need to be the person my grandmother taught to be strong. And that means, regardless of how these people respond to me at this conference, I'm wearing a Nike sweatsuit. I'm wearing an Armani sweatsuit. I'm doing that. And however they respond, they respond.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? The people who didn't like me before continue to not like me. And the people who loved me before loved me even more.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, you're told to dress presentable, right? But what does that even mean, right? I mean, black people getting killed no matter what they're wearing.
Correct.
Black men are getting killed no matter what they're wearing. So, I mean, if you see that, does it matter?
No, like, it made me so mad. I remember in 2020, all these white people that I'd previously gone to college with, they were like, you know what? If the black people just complied to the police, they wouldn't be shot. I would get so angry with them saying that. There was a video of this black man who was a worker at a home health center, and he was on a walking one of the patients at the home health center. The police thought he was a criminal and drew down on him, and they told him to put his hands up. He put his hands just like this. They told him to get down on his knees. He got down on his knees. They told him to lay down. He laid down with his hands still up, and then they started shooting him. I was like, that dude did everything he was told to do. And that's how I felt as a professional. Like, it didn't matter what I was wearing. They did not want to accept me because the psychological, clinical words that were coming out of my mouth were coming out of a black mouth.
Yeah.
And they couldn't handle that. And they still can't handle it.
Yeah. But, with that struggle of your presentation, is that a conversation that you've ever had with white people?
Yes. Yes. I had the conversation several times with several prominent members of this field. And I don't think they want to hear it because they don't see their own biases. Like, they don't see their own prejudices. They don't see it. And I can't point it out. I started thinking about this idea of blind spots. And I realized a blind person can't see. Because some of them they're willfully blinded. Like, I can't make you see what you are choosing not to look at.
That's true. You put it like that, for sure. Speaking back to mental health and it being accepted more in today. You see in hip hop and just black musicians in general, they're starting to embrace therapy. They're talking about therapy, feeling comfortable speaking about their mental health. Even Drake said he's taking a mental health break after releasing his most recent album. So, where do you think this change has come from in hip hop, where artists aren't afraid of being transparent about what they've experienced mentally? I mean, it's always in music. I mean, you listen to DMX Slippin', right? That's a song that's it was like 25 years old now, right? And that's clearly a song where he's talking about his struggles with mental health, right? But it wasn't labeled like that in 1998, right?
No.
So, I mean, where does that come from?
I think society is aging and growing. I think the newer generation is more comfortable in their own skin than we were. I think so. I think social media has contributed to that. Um, I hope the growth of people like me has helped. I think Charlemagne the God, to be honest with you, if you were to ask me, I would say the number one contributor to mental health being a more open conversation in our society, I would say it's Charlemagne the God.
Yeah.
And the reason I would say that is because he's had a large platform for a really long time, and he's done the bravest thing anyone in our culture could do, and that is he has shown his faults and been transparent about what he is doing to work on them. And Charlemagne the God, he's this cool, hip guy that knows everybody. So when younger people see Charlemagne, they think if it's okay for Charlemagne, it's okay for me.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe he's probably done more than any single person to blow away the stigma, because he's been open about his faults and his healing journey. And I think that's what it takes.
Yeah, and we definitely have seen Charlemagne's growth, and especially his portrayal.
Yes.
From like being considered like a shock jock to still kind of having that in him, but also embracing growth like mentally. Yeah, he's definitely been speaking about that for a long time, and he has books speaking about that as well, right? And yeah, but also, yeah, man, music change. You got artists like, rest in peace to Juice WRLD. He was very transparent in his music about everything he's experienced. And everyone, from street rappers to rappers who just rap about anything else. Like, it's just so common and accepted.
I think it's absolutely true.
Yeah. So do you feel like there are certain cliche sayings in the mental health space that you don't find to be true or maybe disingenuous?
Yes, I think saying things like, how does that make you feel? I think those things, they're just disingenuous and they're not real. I think in the mental health space, we talk a lot like theoretically, and we don't talk a lot about the pragmatics of living daily life. And I don't think we're always honest. I mean, that's another reason I have so much respect for Charlemagne the God. Like, a mental health journey is a hard journey.
Yeah.
Like, for example, going back to me in my sweatsuits, a lot of people in my profession talk badly about me, and I have to have thick enough skin that I can handle that. And you referenced it. You saw the comment section of some of my viral clips from the Breakfast Club. I told Black people, stop beating your kids and listen to them, because we need to give them the opportunity to practice using their voice. That's exactly what I said. And people went in on me in those comment sections. But I don't care. Like, I have to be able to say it. Like, there's a consequence when you say those things. And I think all those like cliche things people would say, they're just things that we say to keep you comfortable. Yeah. I'm willing to make you uncomfortable. I'm willing to challenge the way you raise your children, because we need to do a better job to prepare our children for the next phase of adulthood in their life. Yeah. And I don't think we always do a great job of that as a culture.
Yeah. Do you think this might sound crazy, but do you think that there's like levels to beating your kids, right? Because like there's like people have experienced abuse, right? Some people will share how their parents used to hit them, right? But they don't feel like they were abused, right? But then there's people who were also hit by their parents and they felt like they were abused, right? So like do you feel like there's levels to that?
Yes, I think there's levels to it. If I beat you to the point of causing you harm and psychological injury, and I put you down, like, for example, as my father used to beat me, he'd call me names. Oh, he'd say, you're a piece of, he would really, and to this day, those cause me way more harm than the bruises. And that's different from, I caught you eating an extra cookie, so I'm going to give you a spanking.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily advocating for spanking, but I do want to recognize there's a difference between a predicted, controlled physical consequence versus my father used to take off his rings and punch me in my face. That is not a spanking. That is
Yeah.
abuse.
Yeah, it's a nuanced. I feel like it's a nuanced argument. Just as a person who got hit every once in a while as a kid, right? But like I don't feel like I was abused, but then there's people who may have gotten hit every once in a while and they share that with a person. They feel like, oh, you were abused, right? So
Yeah.
it's complex.
There was a court case several years ago where an attorney was trying to get a judge to define pornography. And the judge said, I don't know that I can give a clear definition, but I know it when I see it. And I think it's similar in abuse. Like I can like if you break this rule, I'm going to give you 3 swats with the paddle. Like that's very different than you motherfucker.
Yeah.
And the stuff that happens in an abusive situation that happens consistently over time, often involving drugs and or alcohol. Like it crosses a line from controlled discipline to destructive abuse.
Yeah. Um, I know you also said that you don't think that everyone needs therapy, right? But
No, yeah.
what do you say to the people who, and it's kind of similar to my question of, maybe it's similar to my question of people who don't think that therapy works, but what do you say to the people who don't see the significance of therapy? Like they never tried it. They think it's just like, oh, that's soft, just deal with your problems on your own.
I would compare it to things like going to the dentist.
Yeah.
Like I can go to the local drugstore and I could buy tools to clean my teeth, but the dentist is better trained to do it. The dentist can like get better angles and they have better tools. Like if you go see a psychotherapist, you're seeing someone who's trained to help you. Can you manage it on your own? Maybe. I can't say you can't, but could you manage it better if you had an expert who was trained to deal with those things to help you carry it? 100%.
Yeah. Psychology, it's a science, and many people in the world of science don't believe in God. Just what I've just experienced, just speaking to people, reading things, watching things, because they don't feel like it's rooted in, or they feel like their pragmatism really has no place in the idea of God, right? So there's religious people who don't value science because they don't feel like God is given the credit for what he created. So what role do you think God plays in bettering yourself mentally?
Well, first of all, I, as a person of science, I think you can also be a man of faith. And I think God plays a significant role in our healing journeys and in how much hope and purpose we have and can find in our life. And even in the Bible, it says God works through people. I remember my very, very first job in this field, I did home visits. And I remember going to this woman who was super, super religious, and I would knock on her door and she said, I don't need therapy. God's going to heal me. And I had to explain to her, how do you know God didn't send me? Because I think God sends his people to heal his people.
Yeah.
And I think therapists they're a healing profession. We were gifted this art of healing, and people should access it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe in God, and I also believe in science. I just feel like, science is important because it gives you an explanation and it gives you the tools to figure out all of these things that exist in the world, right? Because
Yes.
science, I don't feel like, I guess science is man-made, but it's explaining, like I said, it's explaining everything that we see, everything that we're going through, everything that man builds.
I think that's 100% true. Like science is the explanation of miracles.
So how does a traditional psychotherapist, right, who sits down with patients end up becoming a world-renowned speaker who writes books, and you said you do stand-up, and you know you getting interviewed now. You're doing press.
Man, I don't know. I think it's God's work.
Yeah.
I think for me, I never thought I'd be anything other than a therapist, man. Like, the honest to God truth is I just was doing therapy in my office. I never thought about all these other things. One day I was sitting in my office and I did a search on YouTube for the type of therapy that I do because I wanted to see what was on YouTube. And what I saw was such garbage. It was such a poor example of the therapy that I do. I started making videos so I could put quality content about what solution focused brief therapy was up on YouTube. And I just kept doing it. And eventually all these opportunities started coming my way. The stand-up comedy thing is crazy. I think laughter is so healing.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine, a woman named Tiffany Haddish, she said, I'll never forget. She said, "You were really funny. You should do stand-up." And I was like, "Man, I'm not about to do that. Like, that's crazy. I've never even thought of that." She's like, "You should try it." And I believe in saying yes to opportunities. And Tiffany asked me if I would open for her and do 10 minutes opening for her. And I was like, you know what? I can be funny for 10 minutes. And this was about 3 months ago. I started doing it. I loved it. It is so much fun. And now I just keep doing it, and I seem to be pretty good at it. But I don't know how these things keep happening other than when you walk in your purpose, opportunities come your way. I genuinely believe that.
Have you bombed yet as a comedian?
No, I have not bombed yet. Wow. I'm sure I will, but I've probably gone up on stage like 20 times. I haven't bombed yet.
20 times is a lot, though, and you haven't bombed.
I haven't bombed.
Wow. I haven't. I mean, 10 minutes is also, it doesn't seem like a long time, but I mean, that's a long time to be under them lights and,
yes,
you know, being spontaneous and coming up with jokes. You write your jokes?
I do all my own material.
No, I mean, do you write, or does it just come like?
It just comes. I don't write. I just freestyle. I just go up and do.
So I listen to, you know, you have these podcasts. You have podcast episodes. You release them every weekday. They're 5 minute long episodes. This week you put out some episodes about procrastination.
Yes.
And what I get from listening to some of your podcast episodes, specifically what you put out this week, is that if a person is engaged in behavior that socially has a stigma, but it's not negatively impacting your life or the lives of others, there's no need to change your behavior.
True.
True. Yeah. So I'm not correct with that assessment.
100% true.
What do you? I mean, explain that further to me, please.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, who says that things like procrastination are bad? Who says that the stigma should be the truth and removing the stigma should be the guiding principle on how we live life or make decisions? If you're doing a behavior and it's in line with how you want to live your life, why on earth should you remove that behavior?
Yeah.
A lot of people consider me to be a procrastinator. I get called that all the time. However, I argue with that assessment because I'm not a procrastinator. It's just some of the things I value most in life are flexibility and freedom.
Yeah.
Which means I get to choose when I do something, whenever the heck I feel like it. And I want to be free and flexible within how I do it. So I have a friend who's the most ultimate planner ever, and he will plan things months in advance. Like when we take trips and we lecture together, he will plan his travel and book his flights months in advance. And I book mine days in advance because I don't really know what time I want to fly.
Yeah.
I don't really know what time I want to do this or what time I want to do that.
Oh, that's it? I thought you were going to say some more.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's the whole point, is like, it's okay for me to be me.
Yeah.
And if you have a problem with it, that's a problem that you need to deal with. Mm-hmm. Now, if it's not working for me, like let's say me procrastinating meant I was missing a bunch of flights, or I was failing in life or in business. I was procrastinating, so I was not getting tasks done at my job and I kept getting fired. Like if those things were true, then absolutely I need to make different choices in my life. But if those things aren't happening, I get to be me, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think it just comes from a lot of people just seeing what works for them, and they feel like that's gonna work for everybody. So
I 100% I think that's what people do.
Yeah.
People absolutely think because I do it and it works for me, it means everybody else should do it and it will work for them. But what I want to say is you need to find out who you are and do that unapologetically.
Yeah. You know, you turned your profession into something bigger than just having clients sit down with you. You know, is this what you imagined when you said you were 20 when you got this calling to become a therapist? Is this what you imagined?
No. At every step, it felt unsatisfying to me. And what I mean by that, when I imagined this at 20, I just imagined having like my own therapy practice.
Yeah.
And then when I got my therapy practice, I realized the only people I can help, and this is before Zoom and all that kind of stuff, the only people I could help were the people who could physically get to my office.
Yeah.
And that felt unsatisfying because that meant my office was in a place called Keller, Texas. So that meant like, if you didn't live in Keller, Texas, I couldn't reach you.
Yeah.
So I started writing books, but then that felt unsatisfying because in order for me to reach you, you had to get my books. Mm-hmm. And then I started doing things online and podcasting. And at every iteration, I wanted to reach more people, but I never envisioned this, like where I am today. I never envisioned it. It's just crazy.
Yeah. What's next for Elliott Connie?
You know, that's hard for me to answer because I couldn't have answered this a chapter ago. But what is next for Elliott Connie is obedience. I'm going to keep working with Tiffany Haddish and the production team to produce my TV show. I'm about to announce a major exclusive podcast deal on a major podcast network. I'm going to keep seeing clients. I'm going to keep writing books. I'm going to keep doing training in my field. And what God caused me to do, I'm going to keep saying, yes, sir. And I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. What is this show that you're about to put out?
Well, there's two shows and I can't really talk about them, but I can say Hearst Entertainment Group and Tiffany Haddish are co-producing and some unscripted television content that hopefully we'll be able to make an announcement about publicly pretty soon.
Yeah. You know, the name of this podcast is Words Matter Pod, and so much of your work is contingent upon the importance of words, whether it be public speaking, comedy, writing books. Why do words matter to Elliott Connie?
Ooh, okay. So first of all, words are everything to me, and words matter because they evoke emotion. And I think people don't understand the power and majesty of words. So for example, I can say to you, what do you love most about yourself? And in that question, I'm implying you are lovable. Because I didn't say, do you love anything about yourself? Because in that question, I'm implying you might not be lovable. Yeah. So I think we have to pay more attention to the words we use and how we use them if we intend to make a difference in this world in a positive way. And if you want, like what I do is I travel the entire world teaching clinicians how to be better with their words. And the reason is because words evoke emotion. And we need to be careful what emotions we pull out of people.
Perfect answer. Man, Elliott Connie, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Thank you once again, Dominique, for putting this together. And words matter, man. Thank you.